Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors, find out what got them to where they are now, get insight into their daily habits, and take these insights to inspire your own growth? Each week, Jonathan Green shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a lifelong real estate investor, advisor, and coach, as well as the founder and team leader of Streamlined Properties. Whether you're looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just for a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, Jonathan seeks to provide a free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Thanks for showing up for another episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. And this is a return guest, old school. He was one of the first episodes, and he's back. Mr. At a Level, Gabe DaSilva. And At a Level is what we go into a lot because that is his house flipping formula. We talk about the secrets, we talk about how he's still flipping, and we talk about how he got to the volume that he's at now. Let's go. This is episode 229 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my return guest, Gabe DaSilva. He is the founder and president of DaSilva Group. He is also the founder of all of these things, which I love all of them: the At a Level Bus Tour, Fix and Flip Foundation, Real Estate Riches Mastermind, and Learn and Earn with the DaSilva Group. He's also a former guest on way back in the day, episode 8, Finding Your Inherent Comfort Level with Gabe. That was September 7th, 2022. My friend, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back on. It's wild to think it's been over 2 years. Kudos to you, man, for staying the course and for recording and bringing so much value to people for this long. Most people, I think the statistics are like most podcasts, like only 3% will go to 100 episodes.
Yeah.
You far surpassed, crushed that. And I know you've impacted a lot of people doing it, and I'm just happy to be back.
Yeah, appreciate it. And I think our voices are a little bit hoarse because we were at the meetup last night, the Zen meetup, and like that was a pretty big one last night. So I'm glad we could put this on. But we were just joking. We didn't barely talk last night because there were so many people here, so we didn't ruin any of our material for today.
That's right. And you're a little hoarse because you have to like speak over the band a little bit. So they're like jamming in like the far back, but you're trying to hear and speak to others. But again,
exactly.
We kind of avoided each other so we wouldn't ruin any of today's content.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I mean, we've been friends for years, but it's always great to get you on here to kind of go over, because I think the most interesting thing that I've seen is while most people who are the highest end flippers are still going like you, but you have a specific strategy with At a Level. How have you continued to just doing what you're doing through interest rate hikes, very limited inventory where we are in all these parts of New Jersey, while everybody else seems to have more trouble or overpaying to get stuff and then having to underdeliver on the product?
Yeah, this came up last night too at the event, and I was talking to a handful of guys and talking about how we're still sourcing. And the beauty of our model is that we kind of create our own inventory. Yeah. So when we're looking on MLS and doing like off-market stuff as well, but you can go right on MLS. You can see a Cape or a ranch or, one of these like smaller unkept 1960s homes, and everybody else is bidding on that. Maybe that renovated. We're bidding on that with another floor on it. We're bidding on that like 2x. Yeah. So it's a completely different model. We create our own inventory because we kind of get to go in there. We're buying something we're going to create. We're not buying what's there. And so that's been true of this model for whatever it is, like 8 years now that we've been doing it. So we never run out of deal flow.
Do you feel like you're able to overpay, or is it more everybody knows you, they know you're going to close, they know exactly what you're going to do, and it's a better option for them?
It's a combination of both of those things. Like the most recent example, last week, we went in 150 over ask on a ranch that we were in competition with 10 other buyers on, some of whom were also builders and investors. So it wasn't just retail. We weren't just trying to beat out retail with conventional mortgages. We were actually trying to beat out builders who are also cash. And the reason we got it over a bunch of others who were right there, same number essentially, we all do our math the same way, is our reputation. Is like, hey, we know that you close. We're fortunate we're doing 4 in town already. This is the 5th. And so that agent can go back to her seller and say, hey, take this offer. It's close. It might not have been the best. We're not quite sure. I don't think we were the highest number, but I think we were the most solid and the best terms.
Yeah, that's a great point, though, because you have inventory that's in progress at all different stages, which goes to what we'll talk about on the Add a Level bus tour. You can just point to them and say, hey, here are the 4 addresses in your town that were already doing stuff. And then they can look on the MLS if those were bought on the MLS and see like, oh, yeah, you really did close on those. That just makes it more verifiable than maybe someone newer who doesn't have anything going and is looking to get one, but maybe just not as solid.
Yeah, I would agree. We're for sure fortunate to have all of that track record. That is, it's not to say that you can't do your first. I had to do my first before I could do my 10th, right? Before I could do my 100th. But for us now, especially in the towns that were super active, that is proving to be a competitive advantage for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, it's for me, it's gotten harder because I'm not volume like you. Because I like I'm not going to beat a home buyer. Like you were saying, it's very hard to beat someone who's only putting 10% down on a conventional mortgage or 20% down at best, and they're just going to offer more. And I'm looking at it as a full rehab, and I don't do at a level. So you have the confidence though to know what you can get exactly from the how many you've done, which really can help you pinpoint it. But for everybody else, it's pretty hard because now as investors, we're bidding against home buyers that we used to never bid against.
Yeah. That's why I mean, sure, I'm biased because this is the model that I know and love and teach, but it's proving to work despite market conditions. I do know and hear a lot about the cosmetic rehab stuff getting really, really tight and people just beating each other up to ultimately find out that an end user came in and they just need a place to live, and
right.
That's different than us. And so for us with the way that we look at these properties, the way we force appreciation, this at a level model, we can pay more. We're confident that we can, especially because of what you said. Like I'm modeling to the finished house. That example I just gave you guys, we paid $999. It was an $850 ask and we're going to sell at $195. So I'm bidding on the $195 house. That's why I'm paying $1 million. Because I know I can get it from where it is to $195 by putting in $400.
And you have an enormous proof of concept from other ADA levels. So your numbers are not going to be like even off at all. I mean, you're generally going to be right in the ballpark on every one. So you can be confident when you go in at 999, which for everybody listening who doesn't live in our part of New Jersey, this is very regular. Things sell way over ask all the time. Sometimes 500, 1,000 over ask, 1 million over ask, not on dumps, but like this is not irregular for our market. So Gabe's not crazy and neither am I.
Yeah, these numbers sound outrageous if you're in different parts of the country, but here, and there are other little pockets where this is true. Here, you got to pay to play. Like that's just it. And if you want to do these deals, you got to be ready to step up. And what you used to buy for 5, 6, 7 is $1.1 million now to get in the game.
Yeah, I always think about though, because when I watch your renovations and stuff online, I understand how much time's being put into it. You can afford to go higher because you know exactly that you're going to have a lot of leeway in that $999 to $1.995. It's probably not $1 million renovation, but you know your costs, so you know that you have overage in case stuff comes up, which allows you to be more aggressive and still have the spread. But also because you have multiple projects going on, 4 or 5. If one ends up at a 250 profit instead of a 400, it's like, okay, great, because you have another. Is that part of what makes it easier as a whole to just keep doing at this kind of volume that you do it?
Yeah, so we're not, it's not our common practice to step up and pay 150 over. I'd more prefer to be the seller getting 150 over my ask. Yeah. But in this case, because of proximity and economies of scale, we did do that. I'm confident that we're going to get our number or close to it. We have 3 projects within 5 blocks. So, I mean, that's so powerful for those that have like a scaled up a fix and flip business. You'll understand like how impactful it is on the bottom line to have a project manager who can hit 4 projects in 15 to 20 minutes. I mean, that's huge. So I was, of course, willing to pay more than most anyone else because of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm okay with paying up in situations where it makes sense. I'm not going to, like if I had lost it at 999, I'd have been okay with that too.
Yeah. I think that's important. But also having those properties clustered, it just sets you up for when they're all done in line. You know, the people who lose on the first one, then you just going, oh, great. Now we have 18 backups for the next one. So you're building yourself a waiting list for flipped properties. You probably have that already. You know, you have mailing lists. Obviously, your wife, Amanda, who's the agent who lists them all, she's unbelievable. So you guys have a system where there's already people waiting for the project. So you don't really have to rely on, like Zillow and the MLS, which of course it helps. Syndication helps. You'll get some new people, but you have people in line waiting, right?
of course, that and as much as I poo-poo Zillow, because most of what they do is just nonsense, they did roll out a Zillow Builder, like a premium account where we can pre-list our properties. So right now, 2 of the 4 that we have active in this one little pocket we're talking about, they're live on Zillow Builder. They're not live on MLS.
Yeah,
and we
I like
are
that
getting
better.
a lot. Yeah, you're not getting the days on market. You're not aging the product,
Exactly.
but you are getting buyers. And so we just did a showing at one that's the furthest along. We're in trim and tile. So that house, we took 6 couples through that house last weekend.
Wow, amazing.
And so
just because of Zillow Builder or something for mailing list or?
No, it's all lead flow through the Zillow Builder account.
That's awesome. That's actually the best thing I've heard them do probably ever, because I'm not a big fan.
They took it down. So they had it many years ago, and for whatever reason, it was like an effort and a program that they just tabled, and they brought it back. And so we jumped in and did it. And like, let's say of those 6 people that saw the house, they're not our buyers. That's fine. We got them to temp check our ask. So already we've increased our asking price by $50K based on the feedback that we got.
Yeah.
And now they're in our web. So, okay, this house is not the one for them. The next one might be, or the one after that might be, unless they go buy. And if they go buy, great. But in the meantime, we're kind of building this list as we're building the inventory, as we're building and creating our comps, and pushing up these values.
I mean, that's like a genius solution, because the thing that I hate when I look on the MLS for new builds is when the half builds go up early. Like, of course, they're trying to sell it, but like you're novice. Like if I have someone who's looking for a 2 million, they don't have the vision, or you're looking at, pictures that have been created in CAD or something. And you're just like, then you show up thinking they think there's a bathroom and there's nothing there. It's gutted. It's like a very hard thing to do. You have to be like honest about it. How do you guys deal with that? Obviously you're using this thing on Zillow now, but in the past, I never see you list them until they're ready, spanking ready to go and beautiful, ready for open houses. But why do you do that as opposed to what other people, there's some that are just always in half build status or just drawings, which to me is a little bit crazy for MLS.
I think there was a time where the pre-sale made a whole lot of sense many years ago. Now, with the market continuing to appreciate the way it does, like you don't necessarily want to shoot yourself in the foot by selling too early.
Yeah, exactly.
So for us, I go live when we close the walls in. If you're going to bring someone through a framed house without the walls closed in, you better have an incredible agent that can really cast a vision and paint a picture. Otherwise, you're just going to turn off a lot of buyers. So we're kind of blessed, like you mentioned, right? Like Amanda does all of our stuff, and she's really, really good at getting people to see what's going to be there, using a lot of renderings and the design package and all these other things, but also like casting a narrative, building that as they walk through the house together. Yeah. So she can get buyers the rest of the way. And for us now, because we're stretching, like we might have modeled this house at 165 or 168, and now we're at 175. And all we really have left to do is stain the floors, put the backsplash, the appliances, countertops. So a buyer coming in now, we're really offering them like some selections, but not enough that it would derail our process. So I'm happy to go live now. I think to answer your question about why others go live so early, my opinion is that it's usually agent broker driven. Like they got the deal from someone who said, I will only give you this deal if you give me the listing. Yeah, and so that broker, because brokers are doing that now, they're gatekeeping these opportunities and they're saying, hey, I'll sell you this if you give me the out sale. And so then they lock it in. And so immediately upon purchase, they get the builder investor to sign a 1-year listing agreement, and then they put it live.
Yeah. I mean, it's like hard enough for consumers now with low inventory. There's some that the renderings are so good that people just don't know, and they'll call me. I'm like, it says it's not built. Like I know I know what a rendering looks like, just like I know what virtual staging looks like. It's harder. But you're right. You do have to be able to have someone who, if you're almost there, who can cast the vision. But again, you also have so many proof of concepts, that she is listed, that you can just point them to, hey, this one's very similar to these finishes, including what you can show them on site.
And in addition to that, really good relationships with previous buyers, where we've had people that have bought homes from us show the home to a prospective buyer of another home.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
That's really cool. That's a testament to like a good product, of course, because they're living in it. So if you did a shit job building it and they're living in it, they're definitely not going to want to invite someone else and show them how good the house looks and all this other stuff. But for us, we've been fortunate. We've had that happen more than once.
Yeah, I feel like if people follow you on social first and then go in, they'll be already in a very high trust position, because a lot of the content that you put out is similar to the way that I think. It's just like, hey, we're not cutting corners on anything. You go down to the studs on everything just to make sure that you're doing everything the right way, and that even though it's a renovation, it's predominantly everything that you've done post whatever they had left standing.
Yeah, it's all new. You'd be hard pressed to find old house in one of our builds. We go all the way down to the studs. We re-wrap the exterior. The basements are usually unfinished. We'll clean them, finish them, and of course the whole second floor is new. So you can't call it a new build per MLS, per like rules and regulations, because it's not. But essentially, for all intents and purposes, it's a new home.
Yeah. And we talked about this a little, but again, it was like September 2022. So I want to go into it for people who are kind of flipping, but don't really see the margins, but Add a Level has margins. What are the most important things that you're looking for in an Add a Level in terms of the foundational support to know that you can put on another level? If someone's not as experienced as you and they're just going to walk a home, obviously they need to get in the basement. But that's really what I think I would be most worried about. Can I put another level on here? What do I need to know?
Yeah. The reality is that those homes that are 50, 60, 70 years old on solid block foundations sitting on 3-foot wide poured concrete footings, like those houses aren't going anywhere. And so building on top of those homes is actually more structurally sound, as hard as it is to believe, than what they're building now, because they're excavating and they're moving dirt, and like virgin soil is much tougher and firmer than this this disturbed dirt, and then they disturb the dirt. And then we don't build new, by the way. We have maybe 2 new constructions a year that we do. I prefer to work with the old structure, the old foundation. It's proven. It's not going anywhere. So structurally, I would say for those that don't know that, who can't see that because you haven't yet logged the reps, get someone to walk it with you. Get a mason or a civil engineer, pay them $250 for the hour and have them meet you at the house. And they'll tell you with enough confidence that you can move forward and write an offer that this is or isn't a fit. An architect will do that too. But yeah, just be willing to pay somebody who has the expertise to walk the house with you.
Yeah. And based on what you said before, that $250 for the hour could help you understand what your real ARV is so that you can bid more than the other people who you said they're just going to want to live in a cape and do a renovation, which is very limited scale for what they're doing. And they don't need the scale because they're going to live there. So you have to figure out what your out number is to give yourself enough leeway to, be safe in the process.
Yeah, your confidence is huge. You're going to write the offer based on the level of confidence that you have about what it is that you can create and what you'll ultimately get for that. And for us, having done this so many times, it's easier. Like we can walk the house and quickly discern that. And if you're newer, you're going to bake in a bunch of contingencies and you're just going to bid yourself out of the deal because you're going to say, well, I'm not sure about this foundation. Like I got to at least leave $50K in contingencies in case I missed something. Meanwhile, we know with great confidence that this foundation is solid. So I'm not even worried about that 50. That means my budget's $50K less. It means I can offer $50K more.
Yeah. Is there a year build that you're not going to go on, or is it just kind of, you can look at it? Cause I've renovated, late 1890s. Yeah. We did do some structural on it, but it was still standing for a reason. I think that's an important note. You still can do some adjustments and it's still fine.
For me, because we love, and in different parts of the country, this isn't going to apply, but we have basements here. So for me, I love to see a 7-foot basement. Yeah. And from there, and that's like 1950s, 60s, 70s era home. Because from there, I know I can either dig down a little bit or I can, whatever I need to do to get to that 7-foot mark. If it's not quite right, 7 feet is gold because 7 feet is considered livable, although it's basement. So anyway, that's what I'm looking for. I'm trying to find a basement I can walk in. Those basements that are hip high, that are just like crawl spaces. Yeah. And you might find that in 1800s homes, that's very typical of those homes. Those, I would do something different. I wouldn't add a level on that, but there's plenty of opportunity to do stuff to those homes too.
Yeah. And I think definitely in our area, I've seen mistakes made where somebody goes for that high end, almost 2 million, but then you get to the basement and it's the original basement and you're like, well, what's going on here? They pour a slab for the rest of it on the side, but it just doesn't have the feel of a home that's always been there. Have you seen that as well, or seen projects where you're like, yeah, it's not going to work?
I have seen where they don't have the 7 feet. They don't dig down to get it. So then they wind up spraying the joist. And then you have this black painted ceiling. but all the plumbing and all the wiring is visible, although it's all painted one color. And for me, that's always been a non-starter. I just feel like you're going to be hard pressed to ask for like a premium number with that. But I've been proven wrong. Like, well, I have been seeing a lot of houses trade not quite over 2 million, but like getting close where they don't finish the basement properly. And I just think, wow, man, like these buyers really want houses. There must really be no inventory.
Yeah, there's not. I mean, I've seen just, it's crazy to think that people close to 2 million can feel that desperate. But, I guess that they just need to get at the locations, right? And maybe they think they're not going to use the basement. But when you compare that to the product that you're putting out that takes the extra time to give it, people who live in areas where they don't have basements maybe think of basements as these dank, dark spaces. We're talking about finished basements, like an entire extra level of living space for kids, adults, usually has like, extra fridge, TV area, obviously all of your washer and dryer sometimes there. A lot of times those are going to go upstairs also. Your utility room, but it doesn't feel like that old basement feel. That's where you can really get a lot of extra comfort for people. But like you said, some people are just jumping the gun thinking they don't need it, and then maybe they don't.
We put gyms down there. You could put a little, like a theater room down there, a nice rec room for kids. The parents are going to look for a place to put the kids and put the toys. Yeah. And so a basement is usually, in this market, is a lot of what they think is like, I'll send them downstairs. And then in those scenarios, that's why I think that they might not mind that the ceiling is exposed. Yeah. But if you're going to have a gym, and you're going to have a theater, and you're going to have a wet bar, and a bathroom, like in those scenarios, I feel like you want a finished, like a proper finished basement to invite guests down to, not just a place to put your kids.
Yeah. For people listening who aren't that experienced in building, or even for home buyers who are looking to acquire, when you are finishing a basement, what things, at least for our area, when can you call something a bedroom in the basement? What kind of egress do you need? And what things do you think about when you're thinking, should I put a basement bedroom? Are we talking rec space? And does that all count as taxable square footage at some point? Because that's been always the thing in New Jersey. You don't see a ton of square footage online because there's so many basements, attics that are in, mid condition that nobody knows what's to call square footage.
Yeah. So the MLS, the way they see it and the way we see it are different. So, and the way buyers see it, like I see it the way buyers see it. So if for MLS purposes, I can't say that the basement is finished, fine. I don't care. But
it's like 700 clear feet of active. Yeah.
Of 7 feet or better, maybe it's 7.2. You put an egress window well. You just got to, you
need to climb out, right? Yeah.
Yeah. You got to have 56 square inches. I forget the code, but they make like the casement windows that crank and open. And then from there, you can climb out in case of a fire. You could put one of those window wells in, by the way, for $1,800. So if that's all it costs to get you what's considered a proper bedroom, I'm using air quotes for those listening and not watching, like no brainer. You just got to watch for the setbacks on the sides of the house, like wherever that little window is, make sure you have the room to step out and climb up. You need 36 inches. And then that bedroom, I count it. Like I will say I have a 6-bed, 5-bath, and one of the beds and one of the baths will be in the basement.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think when you have the 7-foot and higher ceilings, it feels like a bedroom, especially when you have the correct egress. And it's not that, that's where people are forgetting. And a lot of people use those as guest rooms and things, especially if they don't have the, the attic situation.
Yeah, bring light in so it doesn't feel dungeon-esque. You're getting a lot of light through those big casement windows. And by the way, it's become a standard for us. Like we have always put bathrooms in basements because there was always plumbing down there for the slop sink and the washer and dryer. So we would always tie into that and at least put a powder, usually a full bath down there. But now we've committed to putting in these egress window wells and calling it a bedroom too. So every house we do, we're getting an extra bed and bath out of the basement that most people aren't even thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, at worst, it's a guest room. Guests aren't complaining about going down to a light-filled, room with 7.5-foot ceilings. It's not what people think in terms of basements. I mean, it's just a different story.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, it's Jonathan. I hope you're enjoying this episode with Gabe DaSilva. Now, it's cool because Gabe comes to my meetups, and him and I have been friends for a long time. We go to meetups together, and this is what you want out of real estate. He's a good friend, a great investor, and a great resource. And one of the coolest things that he does is the Add a Level bus tour. So we're talking Add a Level on the show. You're going to get the back half after I'm done here. But once or twice a year, he takes everybody that signs up on a bus, and they go to 3, 4, 5 different projects that are all in different states of renovation, and they talk about everything. So if you're interested in that, go to gabedasilva.com/education, scroll down, and you'll see the bus tour. Let's get back to Gabe. When you're looking at a project, what do you think the amenities that you're doing now, that are most important that maybe weren't as important a couple of years ago, in terms of if you're trying to get the most money and reach your max potential for a property, what have you seen to be the most important things to add to these projects, which are generally going to all be Add a Level types?
So we're putting the first floor in-law suite has been
it's huge.
That's been around for a bit.
Yeah.
We're always making sure to get that. Now, like in this post-COVID era, with a lot of people working from home, I know many are being called back to the office, but there's still enough working from home. We're figuring out a way to give them a small office, like a little bit of a workspace on the first floor as well. If you can get both, if you can have a proper in-law suite, a full bath, an office, and a powder, and a pantry, those are like key elements on the first floor. And if you have to give up the formal sitting room, that's like very dated, right? Nobody really uses those anyway. If you have to give that room up to get those other rooms, it's a fair trade. So those are really like our primary focus on the first floor. And then on the second floor, depending on the market, it's creating an ensuite bath for every bedroom, as opposed to that like Jack and Jill model or the shared hall model. Like we're trying to put a bathroom attached to every bedroom, which isn't always easy. You need a lot of square footage to make that happen. But those are like differentiators. I mean, that's what's pushing our product to 2 million and over.
Yeah, I've seen a lot like that lately, and I like it. I don't mind if there's one Jack and Jill, but if there's two, say a 5 beds upstairs, then it's two Jack and Jills and one ensuite. It's still, somebody wants that second ensuite. That teenager doesn't want to share with an 8-year-old. Yeah. But that's thinking luxury. And of course, you probably, when you were started, you weren't thinking like that. What does everybody need? It's stuff that develops over time and how people are wanting to live. Maybe people are staying at home longer, so it makes more sense to have more bathrooms there available because kids maybe aren't running right off to college, or they're staying home longer or coming back.
Yeah. 3 generations too now. Like a lot of these homes are being purchased with help from the parents.
Yeah.
And in exchange for that help, the parents are coming with the couple, with the kids.
Yeah.
So you got 3 generations in a home. Yeah. You're really not going to want to be sharing baths. So you have to figure out how to do it, whether it's move it up and down across the floors or like compartmentalize it on the second floor. All of that's important. And I'm not going to say I know that. Like I really don't have that kind of read. I depend on the agents and the designers who are like finger on the pulse, right? I'm building these things and I'm deferring to their expertise. I encourage everybody who's listening and watching, like to do the same. Find a really good agent partner, find a really good designer, somebody who knows it better than you, and just listen to them. Listen to them.
Right. Yeah. You say it, we build it. Well, I mean, one of the most interesting things for me in luxury and just in a lot of houses where we are is the placement of that powder room on the first floor, especially if it wasn't there before, because there's a sentiment that, it shouldn't be near the kitchen, but it's almost always near the kitchen in a small house because it has to be. Like the water's there. There's just no other options. Yeah. When you have the leeway to go, you're going to try to keep it away from there, right? Because I just always think it's like I'd rather have a half. I'd rather have a powder in the kitchen than not have a powder. But if you have an option, you'd rather not, especially when you're creating a space that you can open up and you're down to the studs.
Yeah, we'll pull it as far from the kitchen as we can, but still keep it connected to the house. So what's worked for us a lot is to put it behind the garage and connect it through the mudroom. So you'll come out of the garage, you'll access the mudroom, you'll go right to the kitchen, you'll go left to the powder. Just to like paint that visual for people, that works fine, because when you need to use the powder and you're on the first floor and the kitchen is your, the heart of the home and you're entertaining and the family's there doing homework and whatever the case is, you really you need a little bit of space if you can. It's not possible on all these houses, but where we have the room, that's what we'll typically do.
I mean, every parent's just shaking their head because it's garage to bathroom. Your kid's in the back. I got to pee. I got to pee. You're like, okay, well, we're almost there. Open the garage. Just run inside. If you have to run across and, figure out where it is, or go down, I'll go all the way down to the basement. Might not make it in time. That'll be a problem.
Yeah. See, I don't think about that. I haven't yet had kids. So, but that makes absolute sense to me.
You'll see. It does matter. It really does. It's crazy. So, over the last couple of years with rates being so high, how come that hasn't affected you either? I mean, we talked about the search process and how you're finding properties, but how locked in are you on, obviously you're using cash for most things, but you've been doing this for so long. There's got to be some area where it doesn't seem to even be hurting on the sales. People are still buying luxury, with 7% rates, I guess, assuming they're going to come down in a little while.
Yeah, I think for us on the buy side, it's the relationships and it's the time in the game and it's the consistent performance. So as the rate environment changes, these lenders, because we might use cash for our down payments, but then we're going to go with hard money for the balance of the purchase and the construction. And so I'm what they call a really proven operator. So they feel really good about putting money with us, and they would rather put $10 million with one proven operator than put $1 million with 10 unproven operators. Yeah. And that might mean that I get better terms, just slightly better, because the market is the market, right? Like they can only do so much. But so I'll say that on the buy side, I get very good terms, not that much better than a first time buyer, but better. And then on the sell side, you just kind of alluded to it. The people coming in and buying these homes, they need to buy. Like they have some assumptions maybe that things will get better, but even if things don't get better, they have figured out a way to carry a 7% mortgage. Yeah. And that might mean help from the parents to make the down payment bigger. I've seen a lot of that. Yeah. What you're not seeing is people trading out of their 3.5% mortgage to buy a similarly sized home with a 7%. That's just not happening. And so that's why inventory is so tight, and everything that we bring to the market, all of our supply has a lot of demand, which is great for us.
Yeah, and I think for the avatar home that you're looking to buy and to turn into and add a level, that everything that's going on actually helps you, the low inventory, because the capes and those small ranches and stuff are usually older people who are moving to Florida or getting out of there, or estates. So it kind of plays into your hands. And again, they're not as attractive for first-time home buyers unless they're really desperate, because they can't see the vision on what they could do, or they're going to grow out of it in 2 years, if they have kids.
The one I opened this call with, that one that we paid $150 over ask, it's a ranch, 2-car front facing garage, 3-bed, 2-bath existing. And I met the seller on site, and he's 80 and he's widowed and he's going into assisted living. And there were no retail buyers for his house. And when he said, "What are you going to do with this? You're going to tear it down?" I said, "Actually, no, we're going to keep it and we're going to go up." And I explained to him how families coming in now, they don't want this floor plan anymore. They want to be able to live on 2 floors. They want to push their kids upstairs or downstairs and keep that first floor for like shared family area. Yeah. So he had lived in it for over 40 years, but he nodded, the whole time he was getting it. He said, "Oh, I understand," but he was just happy to know that some of this house will remain.
It's going to exist. I think that's important. Whenever I was doing, off-market acquisition, I was always saying, I wanted to become the caretaker of the new, I like the quirky homes. That's more fun for me. So, but I think it is helpful if it's you and a couple other people who don't care at all. And they're like, "Oh, I don't know, we might knock it down." It's like, he's lived there 40 years, have some respect. It's not always it. And also, that guy doesn't need a quick cash deal. This is what I always talk about. It's really, you're building that relationship, explaining the vision without fluffing up a story that's not going to come true. He can come back and see it afterwards and say "Wow, this isn't what I lived in, but it's cool. It's still there."
I think, to be honest, on this one, I think that might have gotten us the deal, just that way you just said there, because we were in competition with at least one other builder whose number was right there with ours, who was also all cash. And so the differentiator was, "Hey, I grew up in town. I've got 4 projects in town. I'd love to have you be a part of this." And I think that really spoke to him, having been a 40+ year resident of the town. And he, when I met him in person, did say, "I'm excited to see what you do." And we offered him the opportunity to come back during and after. Yeah. And that was a big differentiator, I think, for us in our offer.
Yeah, I think that's just a nice human thing to do. I've invited people back to the flip. Sometimes I really didn't want to, but I didn't, and sometimes they get mad and then create some scenario like I stole the house. And it's like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't have invited them back. But it is really nice for someone to know that their home that they cared for so long didn't just turn into a pile of rubble, and then a McMansion go up in place of it that nobody really likes anyway.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, how did you get to the ADA level? I mean, like thinking now, it just makes complete sense to me because you have a model that works, but you had to figure it out, through the ways by trying to flip other things or just seeing that the margins, at least where we are, don't work. And after that, is this something that could work anywhere because there's capes and ranches everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I know that it works elsewhere because we teach it and we have students that are implementing it in other parts of the country. And so people might be listening and, oh, it's $999 to buy in New Jersey. Like, that's nice for them. Like, that's not my story here.
Yeah.
That's fine. It doesn't have to be. This model has worked for us here for many years. We were buying for $185 and then we were selling for $499. So the multiples are the same. Things have just appreciated. And then what got us started was doing cosmetic rehabs and realizing that you can't really scale doing these rehabs where you make $17,000, $23,000. Like that's not, you're just chasing closings. It's like a job. Like there is no delegate, elevate, hire, scale. You can't do any of that because you're just not making any money. It's in a scenario like ours where you're going to make 100, 200, 300 on a deal. Like now you're scaling a real business. You're hiring project manager. You're hiring an office manager. You're getting your own branded vehicles. You're getting insurance. You're getting an office. It's a real business.
Yeah.
And so I guess I saw that early on and I was like, okay, I can't keep chasing these bullshit, lipstick projects. Let me find these bigger deals, bigger spreads, and then scale from there.
Yeah. It's smart. Aren't the block values so important to this also? Because I mean, people may be thinking, oh, cool, there's a lot of capes, I'll just look at all the capes. But if they're all still capes and you're the first one to put a hat on it, you have to understand, like, is there actually going to be inventory to go from 200 to 450 in this area? Yeah,
I just did this exercise with a new student yesterday in Connecticut, on the border of New York and Connecticut. And we were looking at places like Westport and Darien and Fairfield. And I go through this exercise. I do it on Zillow with them, right? Like I can't assume that they or I have MLS in Connecticut. I don't. And I'm just looking, hey, what can you buy and what can you sell in this market? And when I see a delta of like 3x, I see you could buy for 300 to 350 and you could sell for $1 million to $1.1 million. Like that's interesting to me. That's enough for me to, double click and go deeper. So that's what I would encourage people to do is be looking for those big deltas. They don't have to be 3x, but if you're buying at 3, 4, 500,000 in your market and you're seeing sales at $1 million in that same market, that means that market is likely qualified for this model.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you have to understand the proximity, not just the block, because you can see when something's coming. There's blocks that are going to appreciate or just haven't hit yet. And they're right next to, where somebody just did, like a cul-de-sac build and there's 5 new 2 million homes and you're, a block and a half away. But if you just focus on that one cul-de-sac, you may not know that, hey, why wouldn't a block away work as well?
I see what you mean. The qualifier market is more like the zoom out model. And you look down at this market and you say, okay, based on this map and the things that are selling and trading, the market qualifies for this model. Now you got to double click, you got to go down, and then you got to be really strategic about like where you do what you do. Like you really don't want to pop the top on a cape on a really busy road across the street from a firehouse. Like that's not going to help you. So those are like more of the specifics, the nuances, the things that you look at, which if you're not an agent and you really don't know the nuances of the market that you're trying to farm, get an agent to help you because they could save you from doing a bad deal. There's nothing worse than putting hundreds of thousands of dollars and a year of your time into a deal to come out flat.
Yeah, the worst is seeing like a very well done renovation or new build, and they've either overpriced it or they picked an anomaly that's not substantiated by the price. Things like graveyards. People always like it doesn't faze me, but there's some people who don't want to live near a graveyard. It's cool not to have a person, another house in back, but there's a bunch of graves staring at you all the time. So you have to understand that you can't price up to the same standards in some areas. Especially, you don't need to in our area, really. I mean, like if you get it on at a reasonable price, you're likely to go over. So it's really about, when we see that, don't you think, oh, their build cost just went bananas?
I see I had somebody come in. It's really late in the game. He had done a deal on a double yellow, and it's not just a busy double yellow in a town. It's a county road that runs through multiple towns. So this is essentially a small highway, and
the racetrack.
And he thinks that, well, I had this huge 10-car deep driveway, so people can pull head in and head out, and that makes it okay. I said, no, man, your location is terrible. You have to make 100K price adjustment for this. You got to think about that. And schools are another thing. Some people don't mind proximity to a school. Others hate the idea of having people parked all the way in front of their house for an hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half in the afternoon. So you got to take these little nuances into account and then pick your projects intelligently.
Yeah, I just looked at one with clients the other day, and it was in Florham Park, and out the back looked directly at the elementary school. Great house. But the trees will grow up more, but it was just there was nothing at all wrong with the house. It was fantastic, but there's just there's going to be a lot of traffic. It's better that it wasn't in the front or on the same street, but still, it's you have to take into account. And I generally think that people, if you get a quote deal on it, you'll still be annoyed. The thing that you think you're going to be annoyed about for one of those anomalies, you will be annoyed about. It's just about whether it's worth it to you,
Yeah, we're trying to eliminate as much of that as we can. I'm not saying we don't take on deals on busy roads. In the past, we wouldn't have, but now with the supply constrained the way that it is, I'm willing to do that. But I'm getting a steal of a deal, right? I'm getting a parcel for $600K in our market where I could put up a 1.9 house. And I'm going to have to wait for the right buyer who doesn't mind being on the double yellow, but I'm doing the things that are going to make it possible for them to head in, head out, K-turn in the driveway. I'm putting all the living areas at the back of the house, not on the front.
Yeah. Oh, that's really important. I don't want anyone to miss that, because that's what setback, of course, from the road is really important. But then if your main living and everything is towards the back and your primary suite is towards the back, you're really hedging your bets towards, okay, we're going to shave off the noise here and any of the constant just traffic, people don't realize it. If there's not a light nearby, no one's stopping. They're just kind of going. It becomes a constant thing when you're in there, but it's also in terms of what you do with the build, insulation, like you said, and getting it so it's really as soundproof as possible. And then I think, again, it's just a choice someone's going to make, but you're doing it knowing that you got in for a good price. So you're going out at a price that is going to be competitive for the busy road, not ignoring the busy road.
And one of the things you just said, so spot on, what is on a busy road that forces people to slow down? Lights and schools, because they have the slow down.
Yeah.
So you have to slow down because it's a school zone. So on either end of the two houses that we're doing on double yellows right now, we have both of those. So we factor that in. That's something that would otherwise go unnoticed by most people. And we thought, hey, this is a sleepy double yellow because people have to slow down because the school's on this side and there's a light 4 doors down. So that's huge. That's huge to be looking at it at that level of nuance.
Yeah, well, we obviously do a lot of work in areas where trains are going into New York City. Mm-hmm. And when I see a train in the backyard, the first thing I ask them, are you anywhere near a stop? If you're not near anything that ding, ding, ding comes down, you're literally, it's not going to be a thing unless you just don't want the train there. That's fine. But from a noise perspective, you'll be there 2 days and you're going to forget about it. It's just something that happens. You just don't want to be, near the things coming down. That will be more annoying. You have to think of all these things, sometimes you just don't know. It's so funny because where I live in Mendham, I live right near the volunteer fire department. And when I was looking at the house, a few times making offers, I never heard the volunteer fire thing go off, and now it goes off. It hasn't gone off since we've been on, but it goes off a few times a day. I don't know why they don't use a text thing, but to me, it's not a big deal. But it's loud. It's loud. When I go to sell, but everyone in the neighborhood and everyone in the borough of Mendham has to know that it's there. So I don't think I'm really losing anything, but it's another thing that you just deal with houses where your due diligence as a buyer and a builder is really important. And you try to give that as much out to the other people. But at that point, they have to do their own due diligence on, look, what school is that? Just look it up on a map.
Yeah, go see these houses at different parts of the day.
Yeah,
we just walked on a deal that we had under contract because I went to see it on a weekend. And there was this humming, this horrible humming. And I'm like, what is the sound? And there was a tall 8-foot fence. It usually code doesn't allow for 8-foot fences.
Yeah.
And so I go on the opposite side of this 8-foot fence. And what I find is it's a assisted living facility, a senior center. And they have these,
like a generator,
these massive rooftop generators. And I had gone in and said, hey, is this, because it's cold here this time of year. I was like, is this a winter thing? Like, does this happen all year round? And someone there said that, yeah, like we have to clean the air in this facility. So that thing blows all year round. And I said, okay, I'm not paying a premium for a house where like the backyard, they'll never be able to really enjoy their patio because they're just going to hear this humming constantly.
Yeah. But so the person who buys that behind you could get lucky because the buyer may not know. And it's not something that you don't have to, it's not like something that goes on a seller to go, hey, there's a humming next door. But that's a great point, though. It is something where you really want to go through the neighborhoods, especially for families moving in. Sometimes they're, people who are coming and they're not, familiar with the few towns that you're looking and like, just, you got to drive around, morning, noon, morning, midday, night, and on the weekends, are a lot of kids riding their bikes. This is going to be a place that you want to go. But what you said before is so important for that. You have clients in these areas where you can say like, hey, just call Bob and Susie. They'll tell you what it's like. They have 2 kids like that. I think that type of connection to your past clients can help you so much and just letting people get comfortable with the area.
Yeah, you could overlook these things and you can buy these deals anyway. Make sure you're buying them at the right numbers. Justify taking on that added risk. I wasn't willing to pay the premium for the house. The example I just gave you guys at the end, someone could have bullied a buyer into buying it anyway, right? Like it could have been a relocation buyer coming from out of state with an agent who was just a shark and talked them into buying my house when it was finished. And they'd have found out years from now, like a year from now. But I just wasn't willing to pay a premium to go in and do that deal. So anyway, it's different people are in different situations. It was 45 minutes from our hub. So there's a lot of things that factor into how you make these decisions, or should be.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, I want to talk about the bus tour because I think it's so unique and I think it's so fun for the people who go on us. So tell us a little bit about the bus tour. Is it once a year or twice a year now?
Twice a year. We do a spring and a fall session, and we load up a bus at our office, and we'll take 55 or so people, and we'll hit 4 projects in varying stages of completion throughout the course of a day. And at each house, we'll stop. And we'll talk about the numbers. We'll talk about the cost of construction. We'll talk about the finishes. If we're in the finish stage, my whole team is there, my office manager, designer, agent, project manager. And so people get to see this happening in real time. They get to ask questions of the people who actually do it, right? It's the best way, I think, to roll up your sleeves and get in the mix without making a large financial commitment to actually doing a deal. We have people come on these events, they see it, and they go, this is awesome, but I don't want to do it. Like, it's just, I would love to just lend to you, and I would love to be a part of it as a debt investor and kind of watch from afar. We have others that come and are like, this is amazing. And they quit their jobs and they go full time. So we have all ends of the spectrum. I've been doing it for probably maybe 5-6 years. And I've got students that have come through that were on the very first or second bus tour that have now done 5, 6, 7 projects, have quit their jobs, have moved into better towns. It's just amazing what this thing has grown into.
Yeah, I mean, the success of your students has really been unbelievable. What do you find that the students who do the best in your program, how do they come in? Like, what are they looking to do? Because I just know from coaching, mentorship, a lot of people are hoping you're going to do a lot more of the work. But I know there has to be a mindset that really works for these ones who have really crushed it and just keep doing it now.
Yeah, I think about that a lot, like the 80-20, and like the 20% of the students that get 80% of the results are the gritty ones. I would say grit is like the biggest thing. Like, they don't just count on me to do everything for them. I am here to support them, and I give them the resources that they need, and then they run and they go get the thing done. They sort it out. They figure out whether or not they need something redrawn, something resubmitted. They negotiate something with a tradesman. They're just gritty. They find a solution regardless of the situation. And then if you want to go one step further, like the 20% of the 20%, the ones that are absolutely just crushing, who are doing it, are just obsessive. Like, they are just obsessed. These are the ones that will send me deals to look at 2 a.m. Like that. Yeah. And that's usually a differentiator in any endeavor. Like, anyone who is obsessed will win. If you are obsessed, you will win. It's how long will it take? And if you're willing to go, like they say, how long will you run if the distance is unknown? Well, if you're gritty and you're obsessed and you're willing to run regardless of the distance, you will win. And I have a few of those, and those are just the best stories, is to see those guys and girls just absolutely crush.
Yeah. How many students do you have in there at a time? Because I watch and I'm like, oh, there's another deal going, and I can tell, I know which ones are yours and which ones are students because it's cross promoted. I'm like, wow, they're really like get after it, and they're not doing small projects. I mean, these are big ones.
Yeah, between 30 and 40 at any given time is what we can manage. Like we thought about like scaling it much bigger and doing like a national thing and then hiring some other coaches to help and support, but I feel like you lose the touch. And so for me to really be able to help and support, that's the sweet spot. Based on like our core team, we can support between 30 and 40 guys and girls at any given time.
Yeah. Awesome. Where is the best place for people to find out more information about all the things you have going on? Is it at GabeDaSilva.com? That's a good hub, but I know there's other sites where they can track you down.
Yeah, they can see me there. GabeDaSilva.com is a great place to start. And then I'm most active, I would say, on Instagram at I am Gabe DaSilva. That's the best place to connect with me directly. But if you go to the website, you like what you see, you can fill out a contact form there, and then someone from my team will touch base, and then we can figure out if it's beneficial for us to work together. You know, everything is like that, right? If I can serve you, I'll make an offer to work alongside you. If I can't serve you, I'll tell you that I can't. So that's why I encourage people to, come through the website or shoot me a DM and let's talk.
Yeah, I think the most important thing that people can get from coaches who really are going to help you and mentors is someone who will tell you, yeah, it's not really the right fit, or it's not going to be a good match. Because if someone's willing to say no, they actually care, because they don't want to make it worse for you just by saying yes to whatever, money would be coming in.
I don't ever want to be gaslit. Like, the best coaches and mentors I've ever had are the ones that tell me you should absolutely not do that. Even though I'm super passionate, I'm sure the audience can tell, like, I'm a very energetic and passionate guy. And sometimes that's great. Other times that puts you at risk. And when someone says, hey, I've been there, do not do that, and they have genuinely been there, I love that. I receive that type of advice.
Me too.
They save me time and money, like the things I cannot replace, time. And so I'm happy to take that type of guidance and offer that type of guidance.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate it. Glad after like 2.5 years, we got you back in from episode 8 all the way to episode 229, 221 episodes in the middle, but good to always keep up with you. And it was good to see you in person last night. So really appreciate it.
You too, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right, man. That was Gabe DaSilva. You can find him at GabeDaSilva.com. I'm Jonathan Green. We'll see you next episode. Thanks for sticking around to the end so you can get a preview of who's coming up on the next episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. And for episode 230, we have Nathan Turner, the owner and president of Earnest Inc. Now, this is an investing company focused on notes. So he buys performing and non-performing notes well below market value, and we go all into notes. They're surprisingly accessible, but you need to listen to the show to understand just how to do it. We'll see you next episode with Nathan.